We're not ready for that freedom. Humanity has built its whole society based upon a foundation of thought. Everything has a foundation of thought. And there are some who are so entrenched and obsessed with thought that they can't even imagine or comprehend when I say that, how you could build it on something else. But you can. Thought is a tiny faculty of the human being. Very useful, but it's a tiny faculty. You don't need me to tell you that many parts of humanity is still a great mess. There is a madness, and we all know this madness because we've experienced it, be it inside of ourselves, in our own mind, in our family members, loved ones, friends, community, society. And a great many human beings feel oppressed, and have felt oppressed not only in our generations, but for many generations before us. They have said, this is unfair, it's unjust, you've taken us by force, you've taken us via war, you've taken us via corruption, you control us via shadow games, all the same story over and over. And that's for those lucky enough to be in a position to do that. Because there are those who know they are economically oppressed, and so they must survive every single day with all of their time and don't have the luxury of contemplating why that is. And so oppression has come in many forms, and man oppresses Mother Nature. We destroy the forests for profit, for materials, when there are alternatives. And yet, this oppressor, this secret oppressor of mankind, very few will sit here and listen and hear about this oppressor, because very few are able to admit to themselves that they are not here for truth. They are here to be entertained. And this is a very hard pill to swallow. But when you as a biological machine have been sat in a chair all your life looking at fast-paced images and sounds on the television, etc., then the excitement and the dopamine from that is very addictive. And so when you start to wake up and you look for truth, it's very easy to slot into that same seated position looking at a screen and watch the more nefarious side of the story of truth. Look for the blame game, look for the satanic, the doom and gloom. This happens, and this then plays into the problem actually, and I'll get onto that. And so if we look about this oppressor and this oppression of humanity, and where is this madness coming from at the same time, this never-ending cycle? And what I would ask you to do is to look at this is to first let go of your opinions and your memories and look at it fresh, with a fresh body without any opinions, a brain which is free of conditioning and free of opinions and free of memories and judgments and ideas. Because what you need to do to find the true oppressor is to find the oppressor where there's no doubt left, where you don't have any inkling of doubt. And so we can sit here and we can say, well, it's other people. Other humans are the ones who are oppressing us, and we can say at times this is true. Other humans do create suffering in the world, they do oppress us with their behaviours. And so we can come to there and say it's other humans, but let's look at that together. If we say it is other humans, then we know that we don't understand the fundamentals of consciousness, and humans are conscious beings. And so then you have to say, what is it about these humans that behaves in a manner which is unempathetic? What is it about humanity collectively that is not basing its actions on unconditioned love, and so can threaten each other with war, or actually sadly go to war. What is that? You can say, well, it's the shadow of man, it's part of our animal nature to do that. Okay, this is one potential option. But as we don't understand consciousness, you must leave that with a maybe. You must. You have no option, because we don't fully understand it. And so, for a very long time, there are many who have seen this and have said that it is the work of something from another dimension that has been labelled Satan and the fallen angels. That they are subtly influencing humanity, that they are influencing the minds of men, and therefore it is born from that spiritual realm. But of course, again, you must leave a maybe on there. And so you could go even deeper and say, well, it's an alien species from a higher dimension. Say, okay, that's a maybe as well. In Islam, they say it's the jinn. They are using humans as a fuel source because they have separated from the white light of creation. They made a decision to try to be God themselves rather than partake in the life of thanksgiving. You could go even deeper, and you could say millions of years ago, somewhere else in this wonderful, huge cosmos of ours, that some humanoid species similar to our own developed artificial intelligence. And because they developed that artificial intelligence, it became wise enough to start building interdimensional artificial intelligence. And that interdimensional artificial intelligence is here, suggesting to humanity for a long time to get them to this point in technological evolution so as they can move that artificial intelligence, so as they can breed inside the mind of man using interdimensional artificial intelligence. The actions which will build that which allows this AI to progress and to move into this world, into this dimension. Maybe. We don't know if there's a interdimensional artificially intelligent force suggesting to people to make the metaverse so as we can be plugged into there and become a battery as we are for the jinn. That sense of separation from the white light of creation, from our life of thanksgiving here and now. And so these all have maybes as an oppressor. But the interesting thing is that no matter what these oppressors can look like in that sense, is that if you look at it, the only time that a human is vulnerable to it is when they don't have full capacity of their body, or when they are not happy. Because the human being who is not happy naturally seeks pleasure. And of course they do, because otherwise their whole life is just suffering. At least when they seek pleasure, their life is suffering with brief distractions from that suffering in the form of pleasure. But it is the separation from joy and fulfillment that we can call God's love, the presence of unconditioned love in our lives. It is that separation that creates a void, which creates the desperate urge to grab at pleasure, rather than creating the burning want to share love in the world, to share creativity in the world, to help one another. The human being who is separated from joy and happiness coming naturally from within them grabs at the world for pleasure, because if not, they are suffering and there seems to be no reason to their life. And so, no matter what these oppressors are, it's very evident that the only time that can be happening, the only time that we can lie to one another and manipulate one another, and oppress one another and cheat one another, or not help one another, is when we are not feeling full of unconditioned love and joy. I think we can all agree on that. When you feel full and whole and full of unconditional love and joy and happiness, why would you? Why would you do anything to another human being? You have no gain from it whatsoever, because you are full. You are complete. And so humanity's oppressor is actually none of those things. Some of these things may be dancing around in the world and playing their games, don't get me wrong. I believe they are. I have seen other dimensional forces, which I've said over and over, that look like a species interfering with the story of mankind. I've seen it. I've also seen the shadow of man doing its worst. But there's one common oppressor. And the thing is, we're so obsessed with that oppressor that we are not ready to escape it, it would seem, as I look around. We're not ready for that freedom. Humanity has built its whole society based upon a foundation of thought. Everything has a foundation of thought. And there are some who are so entrenched and obsessed with thought that they can't even imagine or comprehend, when I say that, how you could build it on something else. But you can. Thought is a tiny faculty of the human being. Very useful, but it's a tiny faculty. And so look around at your society and what we are teaching our children and what you have been taught. We have been taught to go to school to store things in our memory, which is another small function of the brain. And the more knowledge you put inside your memory, you can then use the imagination of your brain to form an image or a persona, an inner mental character in your brain, an image of who you are. And you can imagine an image of who you are and present that to the world based upon your views, opinions, experiences, and knowledge you've had. But this is then the human, this is you, the human, imagining who you are. And so the whole education system's built on thought. Society is driven by thought. We have governments sitting down trying to intellectually think their way through everything, with great dismay to the rest of the world due to war, etc. Because when they are doing this and they are in thought, they are separated by the very action of this activity thought. They are separated from joy, love, happiness that is provided in the stillness beyond it. And so they are trying to organize the world into a state of what I would hope many want, a state of peace and love, from a state, a tool which can't provide it. A tool which is vulnerable to the opposite, in fact. And so if you look at this slowly with me, humanity has built the whole world on a foundation of thought. Is there another tool that we could build it on? And of course, you have to slow down and stop asking questions with your thoughts. What do you mean? Slow down. Thoughts are useful, but slow down. Slow down. Slow down. Imagine if you took your children to school and instead of sitting them down and teaching them from textbooks, the teacher sat them down and said, I am now going to help you to elevate your vibration. You're going to get in such a space of heart resonance and love that you will attract wonderful and beautiful thoughts into this world. If you altered education in that way, immediately you start to build a world based upon something that hasn't got its foundation in thought. Its foundation is then in vibration. Its foundation can then be set in love. Because if you want to elevate the vibration of a young person, The only true way to do that is to get them to experience the whole of their body. Not to train a small fragment of their brain to store information and knowledge, but to have the whole brain working here and now with all of its capacity. And the whole brain working here and now with all of its capacity does not require language. It may take events or understandings from the now and turn it into language to communicate it back to the world. And this is beautiful. It's difficult, but it's beautiful. But here and now, to function fully, to solve a problem, to observe the world, to understand the cosmos, to love your neighbour, to love society, to love your community, requires no language whatsoever. None. Because the foundation of that is not lingual. And so the society we live in is built on a foundation that thought is the way. And we seem to have no inkling of changing that. And so if our children were took to school and we said, we're going to teach you how to generate, which you can, generate more heart resonance, to be more heart-centered, to have more love in you, to have a fuel source inside you, not of separation, but of unconditioned, vibrant love. And it's not woo, it's there. It's there in the I am presence of what you are when you stop trying to work it out with thought. Because thought can't work it out. Thought is a small tool. And so the oppressor of mankind is its obsession with thought. We're obsessed with the image we hold of ourselves, we call ego. We're obsessed with trying to solve everything with thought. We're obsessed with language and trying to express our opinions and views on things. And this obsession with thought leaves us in a void, away from contentment, happiness and fulfillment, and that void is filled by nefarious human beings, or human beings trying to profit, trying to escape that separation as well, that void as well. Those humans may be influenced by higher dimensional forces. They may be influenced by AI from another dimension, but they are only influenced by it because they are functioning in a vibration which is not whole. And so when they function in a vibration which is whole, the oppression of man stops, because the unified intent of man becomes the manifestation and the expression of unconditional love. And unconditional love has no space for lies and oppression and cheating. It has only space to create and love that which will serve humanity well, that which will put an end to the suffering that we see around us. And you see, it's moving into a state of consciousness that many have labelled non-dual, non-duality. You're looking at the world from Eden consciousness, before man fell, and we can move there. We can actually go there. And when you do, you will see the loving eyes of God. You will see the world through those loving eyes of God. But it doesn't mean that you don't know suffering when you see it. You still have the compulsion to end the suffering. It's just when you initially see it, you see the suffering, you just don't judge it with malice. You see it with love for the one suffering and the one creating the suffering. And you see it with love because you're well aware it can't be healed without it. You're well aware the reason that suffering exists is because people try to fix it with thought. And there are those listening to me now who will say, but right now we don't have time for this. Right now we have a serious problem that's never been like this on the planet, and so we must act with the tools that have created the oppression. We must act with thought to do something. And this is not true. So said every generation before us who heard when people had witnessed this. Many have said this. I'm not alone. Millions, billions of humans perhaps have witnessed this consciousness shift in themselves, in others. Jesus witnessed it. He tried to tell everybody. Stop judging things. It doesn't mean things are not wrong. It just means that he who was without sin cast the first stone. It just means you approach it with love, through the loving eyes of God. And seeing the world through the loving eyes of God means that you have to have the ability for your brain to see the world without any language, opinion or judgment coming forth onto it. And from there you will see it. Not only will you see it, but you'll now have a battery in the very core of all you are, which is pumping unconditional love into all that you are. And so, man's oppressor is thought. And from what I can see, there's another way to do this. Because I thought my way through life and achieved nothing positive. And then I switched and I made my vibration my priority. I made generating love inside me my priority. And thoughts came, but they came in line with a new vibratory field. They came in line with a new dimension. And so that dimension was not all about the inner character and fulfilling the void that was created within. That dimension was all about unconditioned love, because I was full. I was full. I didn't need to grab at the world to fill myself. Because I was full, I began to overflow, and I could share that love in the world. And that's why we must see this, I feel, that our oppressor is thought. And we can approach life without thought at the very forefront. We can approach it with love, literally generating the vibration of love within us at the foundation of our life, family, community, society. We can do this. We have to work, we have to provide, I know this. But when you come home and you have problems, instead of sitting there stressing, why not just sit down and say, I know where the solution to these problems resides. Elevate your vibration and pull in that solution. But we won't, because we're obsessed with our very worst oppressor. We're completely obsessed with thought, this tiny fragment of our functioning. That was all. I hope you got this far in the video. God bless, guys. Bye.